Welcome back, everyone. This will be my brand new Ghost Rider video. Marvel had a couple Easter eggs for him during Doctor Strange 2 and during Moon Knight, helping set up the character. They're really quick, blink and you'll miss it, but they are really important. So if you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. We're doing a giveaway for Disney Plus memberships because Obi-Wan Kenobi episodes are starting in a couple weeks. I'll be doing videos for all those as well. But careful for spoilers from everything that happened during Moon Knight and everything that happened during Doctor Strange 2. The first big Ghost Rider Easter egg comes during the movie when Scarlet Witch has killed most of Kamar-Taj, just rolling right over them like the tide, gone full Ringu to break out of the mirror dimension. She did not have to go that hard, but she has Doctor Strange and Wong dead to rights and is about to take America Chavez's power until she freaks out so badly that in a panic, she activates her power again, opening a portal, and Doctor Strange takes advantage of that. They have this extended scene of both of them screaming while traveling through many alternate universes, each one very different, with their scream changing pitch just depending on the states of their physical existence through each universe. Each of the different universes are meant to be big Easter eggs and references to different things. I did a complete breakdown of all the separate universes and what they mean in my full breakdown video, so I'll link that below in the description if you want to learn about every single one of the different universes, because there's a lot of them. The first Easter egg that's important for Ghost Rider is when they're traveling through all these universes. One of them is basically a hell universe that looks like this. You see a version of New York City that seems like the entire Earth has been consumed by hell, like the entire MCU has been conquered by the Marvel Fear Lords, like Mephisto or one of the other giant cosmic demons. And when you think about giant evil cosmic beings trying to take over the MCU that we've seen in the past, Dormammu comes to mind, but for instance, his dark dimension looks very different than this hell type of dimension. Like they want it to look like it's a version of hell that has completely taken over the MCU. But in the hell version of New York, you see a bunch of skeletons crawling around in the background, demons, fire everywhere, skeletons everywhere. So it's like in this universe, Mephisto has conquered the entire MCU somehow. The other Marvel Fear Lords, for instance, are different from Dormammu in that they're basically more associated with supernatural horror, like demons, hell, dimensions. Mephisto, for instance, rules over a dimension that's basically the Christian ideal of hell. But all these Marvel Fear Lords, these giant cosmic demons and godlike creatures, are trying to conquer the MCU just like Dormammu is. They just use different characters to do it. The MCU concept of hell, the underworld, is where you get to actual Mephisto, actual demons, and Ghost Rider, the spirit of vengeance. You probably remember the version of Ghost Rider they introduced on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I did a ton of videos for it back in the day when they introduced him. It was a really big deal. During Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., when they had Ghost Rider on, it was all about a version of the Darkhold. Now, that version of the Darkhold looked a little bit different, like the cover was different, but that's because a different creative team was using that. You can say that all that stuff is still technically canon through the Marvel Cinematic Multiverse, though. The Multiverse now kind of makes everything canon. They tried to tie in with what was going on with Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, but eventually they were going to do a full-blown Ghost Rider TV show spin-off just for Robbie Reyes' version. Kevin Feige wound up canceling it right before Disney Plus was created because they created Disney Plus and he wanted to bring everything to their streaming platform. But reportedly, he also canceled that because he wanted to do something different with the Ghost Rider character inside the MCU, and he's using a lot of this Doctor Strange 2 stuff to set that up along with Moon Knight. A long time ago, Kevin Feige said that the Doctor Strange character just in general was a really big deal for them because in Doctor Strange movies, they could introduce more supernatural horror elements to the MCU, and that's where you get to characters like the Midnight Suns, Ghost Rider being one of the big ones. That's why they're introducing the concept of hell here, the underworld, the MCU, to explain how Ghost Rider can exist. So that's why you see this hell universe inside Doctor Strange 2. Now we know in the MCU there's an underworld alternate dimension where demons exist. Here's where we get to the connection to the Moon Knight series and Easter eggs. We're talking about Ghost Rider, Spirit of Vengeance, this alternate dimension, this afterlife where demons exist, this hell-like dimension. During Moon Knight, they explain what happens to people in the MCU after they die. Their soul, their consciousness, so to speak, separates from their physical body, kind of like when you're traversing the astral plane, except your physical body winds up being dead.
This will really bake your noodle, but I think you were just taking a little time out. I'm afraid you're actually quite dead. You'd be surprised how many intersectional planes of untethered consciousness exist, like the ancestral plane. Oh, just gorgeous.
Your consciousness then transfers to a version of the afterlife, which actually winds up being just an alternate dimension based on each person's belief system, or if they formed a contract with a powerful cosmic being or a god, like Ghost Rider and Moon Knight. So Moon Knight, for instance, has a contract with Khonshu, part of the Egyptian pantheon. So even though Mark Spector never believed in the Egyptian gods, he was Jewish to begin with. When he formed the contract with Khonshu, when they died, their personalities died. That's why he wound up in the Egyptian version of the afterlife. And the Thor characters like Odin, for instance, all believed in Valhalla. That's an alternate dimension where Odin just went after he died. The same thing that happened to Odin kind of happened to Khonshu in his pantheon. They went to an alternate pocket dimension called the Overvoid. That's why when you see Khonshu speaking to Mark Spector or the other characters, he's speaking across dimensions. He can only physically appear to them inside their head, like he's not actually here physically in the MCU. It's the same way that Odin is speaking to Thor at the end of Ragnarok. He's speaking to him from this alternate Valhalla dimension. Mephisto, for example, is the ruler of an alternate dimension that represents a more Christian concept of hell, so when all the versions of Ghost Rider died, or they somehow wind up there through occult means, which I'll explain in a second, because they kind of introduce more occult concepts during Doctor Strange 2, their spirits all wind up there in some way. They form a contract with Mephisto, giving them the spirit of vengeance, thus becoming Ghost Rider. The way that Ghost Rider exists is very similar to the way that Moon Knight exists. We just saw that during the episodes. When each of them died, a cosmic being wound up taking advantage of them in some way. Khonshu, for instance, took advantage of Mark Spector, saving him in exchange for becoming his slave, basically. Same thing is basically true for a version of Ghost Rider, with Mephisto in the spirit of vengeance. Mephisto just taking advantage of Johnny Blaze. Also, during the Moon Knight series, the other Ghost Rider Easter egg is that you see this flaming Ghost Rider skull, one of the first times you see Khonshu appearing to Stephen Grant. Ghost Rider was on the Midnight Suns team that it seems like they're slowly setting up in the MCU with Blade, Kit Harington's Black Knight character, Werewolf by Night, and there were other characters in the comics that were members of the team that they cycled the roster a little bit. Most of these characters seem like they're supposed to be crossing over in the Blade movie next year or during Werewolf by Night in the Halloween special later this year. The other big Doctor Strange 2 Ghost Rider Easter egg is at the end of the movie when MCU Doctor Strange takes Sinister Strange's Darkhold and uses it to dreamwalk and to Defender Strange's body. It winds up being a huge Marvel Zombies Easter egg on the side too. We saw a lot of that during the What If episodes. But when Doctor Strange does that, the souls of the damned attack him, and they're meant to be like the souls of people who are trapped in another hell-like dimension, forced to serve cosmic fearlords like Mephisto, other major cosmic god-tier villains like Chthon. During the movie, Marvel used the spirits of the damned to set up a concept of an unbound spirit, just trying to kill someone, possess someone, just more setup for them explaining how the Ghost Rider spirit of vengeance can exist in the MCU, how it works. It's sort of like them teasing the multiverse in the first Doctor Strange movie, then going full multiverse during Marvel Phase 4 with things like Spider-Man No Way Home, things with Doctor Strange 2. The spirit of vengeance that gives Ghost Rider his powers, at least at first in the comics, is actually the demon Zarathos, who is Mephisto's enemy that he just winds up enslaving, and he uses Johnny Blaze and the other Ghost Riders as his pawns. It's sort of like Chthon, the god of chaos, giving Scarlet Witch her chaos magic when she was born, and then using her as a pawn to try and conquer the entire multiverse during Doctor Strange 2. That was what was going on with the whole multiverse Scarlet Witch chaos magic plot during the movie. Chthon is a completely different character, but he's doing the same thing that Mephisto, for example, would try to do, or the other Fearlords, using different types of characters to conquer the MCU. So all the stuff with the Souls of the Damned, the Darkhold, Dreamwalking, the God of Chaos, the Darkhold Temple, meant to be more occult aspects that they're introducing in the movie. Johnny Blaze met Mephisto for the first time when he turned to the occult to use a spell to try and cure his father's cancer, and even though it wound up being successful, he wound up selling his soul to do it, forming a contract with Mephisto, kind of like the contract that Moon Knight forms with Khonshu, thus becoming Ghost Rider. So Khonshu is the god of vengeance in the MCU, he's also the god of the moon and the night sky, so he forces Mark Spector to take out evil people, protecting travelers of the night. That's why Mark Spector recites that very specific line during the series. Mephisto basically does the same thing with Johnny Blaze's Ghost Rider, taking out the forces of evil, but usually it's just other evil beings that Mephisto hates or is at war with himself, because Mephisto already pretty evil. But just like Moon Knight, in spite of what they're forced to do by their respective gods, they try to use their powers for good things to be superheroes. Ghost Rider has a ton of supernatural powers that they've upgraded over the years that put him on par with other really super powerful Marvel characters. Like his Hellfire can burn people's souls. His Penance Stare is probably his most famous ability. The Penance Stare just causes people to regret everything terrible that they've ever done so badly that they become totally incapacitated with self-mortification. Even though the Penance Stare is meant to be so powerful, the only beings that it doesn't work on are characters without souls, like the Celestials, for example. It wouldn't work on them. Other demons who don't have souls. It doesn't work on characters who don't regret their actions. So for instance, it would work on Thanos because he regretted having to kill Gamora and he does have a soul. But it wouldn't work on characters like the Eternals because they don't have souls, they're like celestial robots. It also wouldn't work on characters like Dormammu because Dormammu doesn't regret his actions. And it also doesn't work on characters who have some form of divine protection from a god or a cosmic being on them. So for instance, Penance Stare would not work on Moon Knight because Moon Knight has the protection of a god, Khonshu. But the next big Midnight Suns crossover that we're supposed to be seeing in the MCU is reportedly during Werewolf by Night, which is happening this Halloween as a special. The reason why Werewolf by Night wasn't in the Moon Knight series, they actually revealed because Kevin Feige said he wanted to do something different with the character during the Halloween special later this year, so they're just saving him for later this year. Mahershala Ali's Blade character is supposed to appear during that, and then during the Blade movie, like I said, Kit Harington's Black Knight character is supposed to come back. I think they're supposed to have Moon Knight back, and maybe Werewolf by Night as well. If you do have any more questions, though, about how they're setting up Ghost Rider in the MCU or other Easter eggs that you've spotted in recent episodes or recent movies, just write them below in the comments. I'm working on new Fantastic Four, new X-Men videos. I'll try to post those as soon as possible. Everyone click here for my full Doctor Strange 2 breakdown for the entire movie, Easter eggs for everything, and click here for my Doctor Strange 2 post-credit scene. Thank you so much for watching. Everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.